Your stories don't define you, but how you tell them will. Hi, I'm Sarah Elkins, your host and chief story maker at Elkins Consulting. Listeners, you are in for a treat today. I met Kuti Mack when we were both in a competition to become speakers at TEDx Youth Street Women for the event that took place on November 3rd, 2025. And we waited to record this episode until both of our videos were out and available for people to watch. And listeners, you won't be surprised to hear how we connected, why we connected, beyond the fact that Kim Webster and TEDx Youth Street Women creates an environment of community and support. It felt less like a competition and more like a reunion of friends. But also because Kuti Mack happens to be a musician and a storyteller and an avid supporter, encourager, and cheerleader for women. So you're in for a treat today, and welcome so much to my show. It's so good to have you here.
It's great to be here. It's great to finally do this. I know we've been kind of, chomping at the bit for a while. I personally have been wanting to just have a legit sit down conversation with you since day one, to be honest, of just seeing you and then seeing your pitch. And so it's good to get here and on this end of everything. But most importantly, just thank you so much for sharing your platform.
Oh, it's an honor. Honestly, to hold space for people's stories is such an honor and a gift. So I'm just glad you're willing to join this with me, especially because I've met some of your family. And so I feel like we have this connection beyond just what we went through together.
For sure.
But we can get into those moments in time as we move forward through this show. I usually start the conversation by asking my guests to share something about themselves that most people might not know about them. And I like to do that because it seems to me that now more than ever, we tend to anchor people in one aspect of their identity based on one interaction or one post or one thing you saw or experienced with this person. And by sharing something that most people might not know about you, we have this opportunity to see and experience how complicated you are as a human being, that there's not one aspect of you that is easy to generalize. So what do you think? Do you have something to share with us?
Oh, of course. So that actually, while I could see why that would be a daunting question for most, it might be the easiest question you'll ask me all day. The one thing that people don't know about me is that I need help. I've lived a very charmed life, if I'm objective about it. Even my struggles, some people would trade for, and I've been through, and maybe even say I'm going through, but the successes are really high successes. I've probably lived 3 lives at this point already. You can see, behind me, some of the accoutrements from lives previous, with the instruments and the platinum records, from me being a record exec. In my TEDx, I do talk about, my origins and being an immigrant, and that's the whole thing, and living in the UK and having a British accent. The hard left pivot into wellness and what precipitated that is a whole nother thing. But in all these things, it's like, oh man, Kuti, I saw Kuti on the TEDx stage. I saw Kuti, on tour with Outkast. I saw Kuti with Soundgarden. I saw Kuti, all these things. I saw Kuti on TV, on Fox 5. But what people don't realize is that I needed help. They see the manifestation. So it's like, I did. But it's from the inside out, it has never been that. It's always been the benevolence of somebody. Me being on Sarah's podcast right now, it's the benevolence of her saying, you know what? I want to have a conversation with you on my platform. And so I need help. Getting that next stage that I'm speaking on, paid to speak on, I need help. And it's like, I'll give you an example. So that has nothing to do with this, but I think we'll bring it home to everybody. So I remember in another life, in a previous life, single young man, with my boys, other single young men. We go on vacation, and we had some spots we would hit with certain levels of frequency, right? And Dominican Republic was one of them. So we're out there, Dominican Republic, beautiful beach. And me and one of my boys, four of us, me and one of my boys decided to get up early and go to the beach. So we'd been there for a couple of days. We got up early, just sitting on lay out on the beach, out there just chilling, just, sleeping on the sand. And I look way off in the distance of this beautiful beach. I look way off in the distance, and it looks like I see these little kids walking on water. I mean, I'm talking like way out, way out. And I'm thinking, like, how are they doing that? And a native happened to be coming by. We'd be befriending some people, some locals, and this native could come by. He would always check us out, get a little money from us, whatever. And he says, I said, how are those kids doing that? And he said, oh, he said, it's shallow. It's shallow. You can just swim out there. You can swim all the way out there. I mean, it was far, like as far as where you see the horizon meet the water. That's where they were, and they were walking. I said, that is so cool. He said, it's shallow. He said, this is almost like a basin of sorts. Like, it's a very shallow front end. So maybe I think you could walk out 50, 70 yards before it even got to like waist height. It was really cool, placid beach. And then there's a part where it would dip and maybe drop down, 15, 20 feet. But apparently it would come back up and you could get to that end. Now, full disclosure, I've always presented the way I present now. Even before I was into fitness, I've been an athlete since I was 8. So I've always looked athletic. I've always been in shape since 8 years old, 6-pack, the whole 9, right? So no one looking at me would be like, oh, you can't do something physical. The local looked at me, just sized me up, said, oh man, you can do it. You can just swim out there and get there. Full disclosure, I'm not a great swimmer. I can move in water, but I'm not a strong swimmer. I'm better than I was, but I'm not a strong swimmer. So he says, nah, you can do it. And I'm like, all right. I'm even hedging with him, like, nah, I don't know. He says, nah, man, it's just really, all you gotta do is get past that middle part and you'll be right there and you'll be with those kids. And it looked good. The environment was so intoxicating. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do it. So I start heading out to the water and I start getting really far. Like I said, 60, 70 yards. Water hasn't even really hit my waist or chest yet. I'm going. And then all of a sudden I hit this little bit of a dip, like, ooh. So I start, I don't call it swimming, but yeah, moving in water. Got my head above water. And I'm determined to make it happen. The further I get away from the shore, though, one thing I noticed was when I look back, towards the shore, I could hear the kids more than I could hear the shore.
Okay.
That's important. So I can hear the kids. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm close enough that I can get to those kids.
A little bit further.
Just a little bit further. But as I go, now I'm like, feet aren't touching anything. And I'm like, man. And there's a current.
Of course.
So
that's what I was thinking. It's like you're kind of being pulled in a different direction.
Well, not even pulled. I'm just in no man's land and I'm not a swimmer. And I couldn't hear the shore at all. And at this point, I'm nervous because I'm like, I don't know if I've got it in me to get to where those kids are, or even if I get there, I don't know how I'm going to get back. And as the trepidation kind of starts to creep in my head, I feel something. To this day, I don't know what it was. I feel something just slither across the front of my legs. And it felt long and it felt kind of alive.
Terrifying.
Man. What's his name? Mark Spitz. What's the boys? The Olympic dude. Man, he couldn't have caught me. I was just flailing in the water and I was just speed. I mean, everything I had just going back to the shore. Now, my point is in that whole long drawn out story was looking at me, you say he's an athlete, he can get there. Nobody who was even remotely around me, even as I was sitting there kind of looking around like, I need help. Nobody thought, oh, that guy needs help. Because he looks successful. Right. He looks strong. He looks able. Heck, he's all the way out here, right? Mm-hmm. In these depths that in
the oh shit zone.
Yeah, he's in the ocean. We're on boats and jet skis. He's in the ocean. So, hey, he must be all right. Oh. But I wasn't. And I say all that to say that that's been the story of my life. Like, there's plenty of times where it's just like, hey, people see the success and go, Kuti did another great thing. And it's like, man, I needed help every single. I can name every time I've had an opportunity. I can name a person or not, if not three, that if it's not for that person just being benevolent enough, if not for that person giving me a shot, if not for that person saying, hey, you're the one, come here. I would love to say that I wake up in the morning and just say, you know what, I'm going to. And then it happens. I'm going to be on TV. Every time I get a call to be on TV, every time I get a call to be on the radio, for me, it's always like, wow, me? Now, when I show up, I'm going to show up.
Of course, right.
But I never take any one of those opportunities for granted, including this one. So if the thing that nobody knows about me, I need help. So anybody out there that's trying to book a dynamic speaker, I need help.
There are so many reasons to appreciate this story. And I don't think it's unusual for people we're coming right back to the beginning of why we even asked this question. Is that it's not unusual for people to look at somebody and think, oh, they've got it all and they did it. And so just saying, I have had a lot of help along the way. I didn't do this all by myself. I think that's critical for all of us to say. And we hear it, you see it on the Emmys and the Olympic athletes are like, well, I couldn't have done it without my mom taking me to practice or, my best friend that's always here for me. You hear it in those places and there's an edge of belief to it, right? Because we all know that we've been there. Right. But I don't think that we hear the on the way, right? Mm-hmm. I'm on my way now.
Some of that is by design because honestly, there is still a self-belief that you have to have that you can do these things. Like I even said as I was telling the story, when I show up, I'm gonna show up.
Right.
But tapping closer into both of those things, A, man, who have you been? And B, who can help you get there? Because talking about our common TEDx experience, I don't know about you, but once I got into this mix with the TEDx experience that we had, which is very unique, I started meeting other people in the TEDx realm. Mm-hmm. And anytime I told them about what we were going through and what we had to do to earn a spot on stage, they looked at me like I had 3 heads.
Same.
They were like, dude,
same.
What? Like you had to do
it was so competitive.
I try out, compete, campaign. And for me, the wild part is my mission in life is to help people. And as I'm saying it to you, maybe I'm unpacking as I'm saying it to you. So my aversion to asking for help is really, it runs totally up in opposition to my desire to help people.
Right. Again, not unusual.
So in that regard, when it came time, like, okay, this is opportunity of a lifetime for me as a speaker, for us as speakers to get on the TEDx stage. And never mind the topic that for me for a second had me like, wait, what? We got to talk about who? Never mind that part. But just I had to campaign. I had to ask people. We had to ask people. We had to ask people to vote. We had to ask people to pay. That was as far out of my realm of, I would have just rather go get that TEDx, land it, achieve it, and then come back and say, hey, everybody, I got a TEDx.
That's what I did. Right.
As opposed to, hey, to get this TEDx, I need you here and here and here and there. That was so far out of the realm of my comfort zone, but I learned a bunch through it and I embraced the process. And I'm glad I did because now it's teaching me now. Because like I said, at this stage, right, I'm knowing like, oh, I need to ask.
The thing that you just uncovered for me is I've been thinking about this too, the whole journey. And this aspect of the journey wasn't what I've been thinking about. I've definitely been thinking about who helped me get there. But you just reminded me how important it was to take people along on the journey with us.
Yep.
And I think by doing it the way we did, by going through this multi-stage process and campaigning and asking people to vote for us, we weren't just trying to get in. We weren't just trying to be the speaker. We were inadvertently creating community and bringing them along on that journey so that they were as invested in it as we were, which is unusual.
Yeah, highly unusual. I mean, everybody I talked to, I remember I went to a TED event, a bigger TED event, just the night or two before ours. Because somebody said, "Oh, you're gonna be a TED speaker. You should come to this event with me." And I went. It was huge production, and I didn't know what to expect with ours. So I'm thinking, okay, if this is what it's gonna be, I'm in. I was like, this
Yeah,
is
this could be
gonna
so
be,
exciting,
it
right?
was so big. But all that said, not to denigrate ours, but my point being, I inadvertently knew one of the people who was giving the TED. He's an artist, and so I caught up with him after. I was like, hey man, congratulations, da da da. I said, man, and I'm asking him all these questions about what he had to do. He's like, man, they just asked me to do this. And I was sitting there like, what? Like, yeah, they just called me up, asked
Yeah.
if I wanted to do it, and I did it. I wasn't even sure what I was going to talk about, and I just,
Well, I had been at two different TED events that were slightly bigger. They were both at TEDx Billings in Montana, which were also slightly bigger than ours. But my experience was that they were great events. What I experienced with it was, these speakers aren't speakers. Like, this isn't their career.
Yeah.
And it's so fascinating to watch them work so hard to get there and do what they're doing. And I loved it because I would recommend anyone who has the opportunity to go to an event, a TEDx event, go. Because there were so many interesting ideas shared. And everyone in the audience is curious. That's why they're there. So it's like when I worked at the library. It was one of my favorite jobs ever because I was surrounded by books and people who like to read.
Yeah.
It was a pretty strong community and I fit. It was like, I was there for 2.5 years, but I think about the TEDx events in a similar way, that you are surrounded by ideas, thoughtful people who are driven and intentional and motivated, and everyone in that audience is curious. They want to see you succeed. They want to learn from you. Nobody's there because somebody paid them to be there or because their boss made them come.
Right. Right. Yeah, and that's true. And the interesting thing for me as a speaker in the whole process was realizing that what you realize going to other TED events was that it's not about your acumen as a speaker as much as it is about how much your idea resonates. Mm-hmm. But on the flip side, you as a performer, me as a speaker, former performer or former music industry, et cetera, there was still an aspect of me that was like, okay, I won't be able to convey my message if I don't convey it. If
right.
I don't
put it in your whole body.
Yeah. If I'm just in here just like, stumbling and fumbling, my idea might not fly, especially given the perspective that I was coming from with my actual talk. I was like, I got to be in this thing full fledged. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, for the first time, I think in a long time, if not ever, as a speaker, be vulnerable. Mm-hmm. Because if I came across, just prowling the stage like I have in some other speaking events, and I saw that in I saw that in one of our rounds, maybe like the semifinal round where we were in person, the first time we were in person. There were some people there who were speakers, Right. And I remember seeing them and watching the room and watching how the room didn't receive them because they felt like, well, this person is just speaking to us.
Well, they're putting on an act.
Yeah,
right?
And I remembered being, I remember in real time just kind of remixing my pitch, like, okay, if I come off and just give Kuti energy, I could be one of those people. So let me just sit in the moment for a second and really take it in. I remember the thing that threw me off on that first semifinals competition stage was they actually had the TED letters on stage.
Right.
And I was like, oh, I didn't know we got to do that until it was over. And that for me, nervous isn't the word I want to use, but it was like, ooh, this feels a lot more real.
It just made it more real. Yeah, bigger.
And I acknowledged that when I got up there. When they called me, I just looked at those letters for a second.
I remember that.
You remember that? And I was just like,
yeah.
That was all.
It was such a good real moment.
That was very real. That was not rehearsed. I looked and I was just like, I had no idea that these letters are going to be on stage with me. My vision was just, oh man, like this happened quick,
Yeah.
But
I remember, what I remember most about that was I knew a few of us had been speakers in whatever capacity that was. Like we've been teachers, we've been we've spoken on bigger stages, whatever. There were two things that stood out for me. One was this felt really different.
Yeah.
And I think some people who are speakers had underestimated how different this is from being a keynote speaker or being paid to stand on a stage and perform in some way. It is a different beast. And
1000%.
that was the first thing I noticed, which made me nervous. And I figure if you don't have some nervousness about this, you're not doing it right.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything to you.
Exactly.
You're
not putting yourself out there.
Yeah, I've never played a game like as an athlete or had a concert as a performer where, I didn't feel, I don't call it nerves. I just feel like this electricity was just, if I don't feel that electricity,
you're not putting your heart into it.
Yeah,
so that was the first thing I noticed. The other thing I noticed was I took this step back because I was feeling really nervous. I could feel my knees jiggling, I could feel my heart pounding, and I'm doing my breathing and I'm, going through my pitch in my head. And I looked at all these other people who were auditioning that day for the semifinals. So this is at Busboy and Poets at near Catholic University.
Yeah, in Brooklyn. Yeah.
In Brooklyn in DC. And there were probably about 60 people in the room.
Yep.
And I'm looking at these other speakers, one in particular, Dahlia.
Yeah.
Whom I fell in love with. Like she's a force. And she was standing just outside the door and she was even more nervous than I was. Oh. And I remember thinking, whoa, if I'm nervous and these people are feeling even more than I'm feeling, man, these people are brave as shit.
Yeah,
this takes real courage.
For sure.
I didn't feel like it took as much courage for me because I'm a performer. I've been singing with the band, a rock band, for 15 years.
Yes.
But I look over at Dahlia and she's the real deal. And I looked at her and I said, you okay? And she's like, I'm just nervous. And I said, yeah, me too. And I said, are you a hugger? And she goes, yes. And we just wrapped each other up in our arms and just held that hug. Neither of us let go too soon.
Yeah.
We just held each other.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized I don't actually, I would love to be selected out of this, but if I don't, I'm okay with that.
Yeah. And that was also an interesting thing too, because, like I said, I've been an athlete, music industry, very competitive. So there's this kind of competitive streak, and I'm thinking like, okay, I don't mind losing, but I can't lose. I will mind losing if I don't give my all. If I give my all, so at what stage would I be okay with this is it? And all along the way, there'd be some little nugget thrown. It's like, I remember them having the TEDx letters at the semifinals. I remember somebody saying from stage, like, you've spoken with the letters beside you, so you've done that. And I was thinking, oh, wow. Yeah, I guess I've done that. Even though I haven't done it.
Right.
I've done it. I got a picture. So, okay, if this is it, that's it. And then when we got to the finals, and I was just kind of talking to people and talking to Sharon, especially talking to, oh gosh, I'm gonna be mad. I forgot. I can't recall.
So Kuti's referring to Sharon Weinstein.
Yes, the People's Choice.
The People's Choice winner.
Yes.
And he's referring to, as we mentioned, there were semifinals in DC in September of 2024. The finals were in February of 2025, and the event was November in 2025. So I just want to give them a little timeline.
Context. Yeah, sorry for that. So what happens is, as I'm talking to the different people, I'm realizing that so many people that were in that final group of 10 had been trying to get TEDx talks for a while. Some had traveled the world to get a TEDx talk. I wanted a TEDx talk when I was introduced to TEDx U Street Women, it's like, all right, cool, let's go. This is my opportunity. And I remember at the finals, as I'm looking and surveying, once everybody had done their pitches, and some of the pitches I'd never seen before because it were 2 separate cohorts that were running concurrently, and 5 were chosen from their side and 5 were chosen from ours. So I'd seen us.
Right.
But I had no idea what the other 5 had in store. And as I'm listening to them pitch, and I'm like, man, I'm thinking, okay, mathematically, at least 3, maybe 4 of us will advance is what I was thinking. And I was like, man, what if I don't get it? But as I talk to these people like Sharon, like that's like a lifetime bucket list, and she told me, hey,
and she was 80.
I want to get a talk. I want to get a talk before I'm 80. I just turned 80. It's my 3rd or 4th time trying. And I thought, you know what, if she got my spot, cool.
She can have it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, she deserves it.
I'll know what to do the next time. Like I felt like I was empowered to give this another go if I had to. And I felt like one of the few beginners in this whole thing. Everybody had a story of the last time, the last country, I'm thinking, wow, this is my first go and I'm here in the finals. Okay. And as soon as I was good with that, my name got called. Mm-hmm. As soon as I said, you know what, God, if I don't get it, that's good. One of these other people, fine, that I'll be back. Kuti Mack, and I was like, what? And I remember so many emotions going through me at that time because I had put so much into this. Mm-hmm. And not that anyone else didn't, but, just personally speaking, I put so much into it. And I cannot think of something that I'd wanted to accomplish more, just given the arc of where my life has dropped mm-hmm. me off at this point. Mm-hmm. As an adult, this stage of my life, in my 50s, I could not think of one thing. I just lasered in and just like, I need a win. And I got it. And that was, wow.
The golden ticket. So for our listeners, this was a competition. It was 2 different cohorts that went through semifinals to get down to 5 people each. And then the finals were in February with the 2 different cohorts. And this was all about the People's Choice. And Sharon Weinstein won the People's Choice through voting. And what I liked about this whole system was that it wasn't just people submitting their information and maybe a video and being selected from a pool of, a few hundred or a few thousand. But this was people who otherwise wouldn't have had that opportunity. They wouldn't have gotten past that initial gatekeeper. Mm. And here they are fine-tuning their pitch. They got the opportunity to fine-tune their pitch to get to this point. And then afterward, the organizers said, well, we have some golden ticket winners, which were people that the committee themselves, the coaches, the organizer, heard something in those pitches that they saw potential in to become full-fledged talks that they wanted to hear, that they knew would resonate with their audience, because this was their 5th year of doing TEDx U Street Women. So I remember the moment too, mostly because you and I hugged right afterward when our names were called, and both of us were in tears. Like you were talking about your daughter in that moment and how important this was for your relationship with her in terms of how you saw your role in her life. Yeah. And I saw my cousin. And then it was after that I found out that the woman that I had laser focused on during my 3-minute pitch was your girlfriend.
Yes.
Lindsay,
yeah.
Oh my gosh. And she is, oh my gosh, talk about a force.
Phenomenal. I loved y'all's conversation. She beat me to the punch and being in the seat across from you for your show. But appropriately so. She has an amazing book that she's written, and yeah, a force is, just the foundation of, my perception of her. She's a phenomenal woman.
Yes. So when you think about the talk itself, the clarity that you came to, I think a lot about how transformative the experience was, not just in my own idea of who I am and what matters to me and how I was going to get there, because it was the most disciplined I think I've ever been in my life to complete the script, make the edits, and then memorize it, which I've never been somebody to memorize a script before. And for me, it was transformative because I always knew how I felt about storytelling and its potential to connect us. And I had done the research that there's already a ton of evidence out there about how it helps connect us physiologically, neurologically, emotionally. But this experience, when I did that 3-minute pitch in February, they had given me advice back in September saying that I was actually in my 5-minute pitch, it was 2 different ideas, and I needed to focus in on one.
Mhm.
And that 3-minute pitch, my first thought when I was selected was, oh my gosh, how am I going to make this 12 minutes? I just honed in on this perfect 3-minute description of my idea, and now I have to expand on it. Like it was just
So I'll ask you the question. When you went into it, with the concept of the pitch, and that's how your process started.
because I already knew what my idea was that was unique. I have watched a lot of TED and TEDx's. I've done a lot of reading and research. I follow other people who do similar work to me. And I had never heard anyone talk about it the way that I have been talking about it for almost 10 years.
Yeah.
So I already knew what I wanted to talk about it, but I didn't know necessarily the context or the clarity that I could tell people this idea in 3 minutes.
Yeah. So for me, the interesting thing was when I watched TEDx's and then contemplated the idea of me giving a TEDx before being introduced to TEDx U Street Women and this specific process. I had kind of sort of almost been handed an opportunity maybe about a year prior, or maybe 8 months prior to my introduction to Kim Webster and TEDx U Street Women. But in that situation, so COVID had shut down a lot of TEDx's.
Right.
So they were all starting to kind of pop back up a little bit. And in their kind of popping back up, somebody said, well, hey, this chapter is reviving. They're going to have an event on such and such. And, this is what they're talking about. And I might be able to shoehorn you in. Here's their theme. The theme, I forgot what it was. But my areas of expertise are wellness and music industry. More specifically with wellness, stress elimination in the name of increasing productivity without burning out, and music industry, which has a bunch of
there's a lot of crossover there.
Right. So when this opportunity came, I'm looking at it and they give us the theme. The theme is the future of global democracy. And I was like, I don't know how to bridge that gap with music, so I'm not going to try. I'm going to look at it from a wellness perspective. But even then I was struggling and I felt so out of my depths. Oh, let me rewind. That previous experience that was handed to me, I tried to just, I watched TEDx's casually and I tried to just watch them, just kind of look at the beats, almost like I would a performer, like, okay, here's how he moves during the show. This and that. Okay, the bridge does this. Okay, I think I get how to write a country song, And as I was trying to put this TEDx together, I'm trying to sound super smart, sound super intellectual, and it's not coming together. And so that other situation that was sort of almost handed to me, I just couldn't deliver. I remember just being like, I don't have it. So I'm thinking like, I don't really get how to write a TED Talk. And then I thought if I was going to write a TEDx, I was going to pick the topic and I was going to pick the subject, and it would not have had anything to do with the future of global democracy. So when the future of global democracy is presented to me, okay, you have an opportunity. Here's an application. It's the closest you've ever been, Kuti, but you got to talk about this. The only way I could even do the application, crazy as it sounds, was to write the speech. So it's not to say that the speech that I gave was the draft that I wrote initially, but there were, I'll say about half of it was.
Elements of it.
So I had to write the whole full speech long form. And mind you, I've seen TEDx's that were 30 minutes, 18 minutes, 19 minutes. So I wrote like this about 20-minute piece and then condensed it into a 5-minute pitch. And but what you would like, just the same thing you were talking about from the opposite direction, that was hard. Like I was like, okay, how do I get all these beats in? So my pitch, but cat's out the bag now. My pitch was honestly just my speech condensed. But then the second pitch, I had to condense. Once I got it down to 5 minutes, they're like, okay, now chop it to 3. And I was like, yo. And so I was like, this is impossible. And so I did that. And then from there, now you're getting the coaching, and I submitted myself wholly to the coaching. Even though I'm a speaker, I said, you know what?
Same.
Let me.
What can I learn from this?
Yeah, I'm gonna leave everything. I know how to do what I do. I've gotten paid to do it before. I will get paid to do it again. So how can I can only better myself by opening up myself to actually a TEDx sanctioned protocol of how to deliver an effective talk. So I said, all right, cool. I'm just all in, mind wipe. Let's just go. And as we're doing it, and I had an amazing coach, Ariel, shout out to Ariel, I had an amazing coach. And so as she's coaching me, there's times that, instinctively I want to push back, like, oh, no. Like, this is what I do. But I was like, zip it, just go. And I just kept going. And then I started learning things. And so that's where the revelation came in terms of just, things that I could refine as a speaker, full stop, methodologies that I could use to memorize. Because like you, I memorizing a speech. No, I mean, I could speak for hours. I could speak for 3 hours. I've lectured, 90-minute sessions, done all these things. I could speak for hours as long as I have bullet points. But to tell me you're not going to have bullet points, you got to write the script. And not only do you have to write the script, but you need to give it back verbatim, because this may be used as curriculum and things of that nature. So we had to do bibliographies and fact check and all these things. And then once you had that, you could not deviate from that. You're not up there just freestyling, and which I thought that people did. And then for us specifically, we didn't have AV. Right. So even if we, because I've been to TEDx,
no slides, no teleprompter,
kind of stuff, so you got some cues. So I remember asking, are we going to have AV? And it was kind of like up in the air. So I remember curating my talk with just, okay, I got one picture that if they allow me to use it, I'm going to use this one picture. Other than that, that's what it is. And even that picture was something that would have conveyed emotion. So I was like, okay, I have to be able to convey that emotion if I don't have the picture. So those are very interesting beats to have to walk out as somebody who fancies themselves as a speaker, is a speaker, as this track record as a speaker, a good one per people's reviews, but now I got to memorize a talk. Woo, man. I was like, and we had to like document our memorization on a regular basis. You had to fast track your process because of things that were going on in your life. So it's just, I remember just thinking like, wow, man, this is intense. But I kept saying, I will only be better because of this.
Absolutely. And
only be better
it's funny you say that, because I had similar, like, okay, I'm going to get a coach, but I do this. But what can I learn from this? And then when I had Aria as my coach, and she was fantastic with me. And again, like same as you, just opened it up, and I thought, I don't know everything. This woman has been through this a handful of times. She's worked with a lot of clients or TEDx speakers. What am I going to learn from her? Because I need to learn something from this experience. And I kept saying that I was worried about the memorizing, because that's not something that I've ever been good at. And a bunch of my friends are like, Sarah, how many songs do you know the lyrics to? Yep. I'm like, well, yeah, but I've been singing for so many years. And so the method that I did, one of my friends said, oh, I just recorded it on my phone and just listened to it when I was in the car, when I was walking, whatever. And I did that, but I split it into 4 3-minute
That's
clips.
What I did.
Because
I just memorized it like I treated it like it was 4 acapella songs.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was doing.
I just listen to it, read along to it, and then try to recite it, then try to anticipate the line.
So did you also start to realize how memorizing it actually gave you freedom in your talk? Did you notice? Because for me, it was like, once I memorized it, and I hike almost every day here in Helena. I have to take the dog out. He has to get out for a walk. So that's when I would work on my memorizing, was when I was hiking. So I had at least an hour a day where all I was doing was working on memorizing, talking to the dog, running into friends, whatever. But I remember at the end of that realizing that having my talk memorized actually gave me a lot of freedom during the talk to truly engage and connect with the audience in a way I never have before. because
it was interesting on my. I cut you off. Go ahead.
because I knew what I was going to say next. I wasn't thinking about what I was going to say next. It was so fluid at that point that I could pause where I wanted to pause without being worried about what I was going to say next. I could look out into the audience and feel their energy. Now, I do that when I'm singing, but as a speaker, it felt like, I don't know, it was a really different experience, and I loved it. Not that I would memorize every talk.
Yeah, I don't know if it made me feel free. I think what I was afraid of when I memorized it was it feeling canned.
I was worried about that too.
And so I was like, I had to like figure out how to get my beats back. And what I actually did, I spoke to a friend who was an actress, and I was like, how do you, when you're doing like monologues and stuff like that, like how do you memorize the material but just make people feel it? And then she introduced me to the concept of beats. And so she says, just mark the beats and feel those beats. And so I started doing that. And when I started marking the beats, that's when it kind of felt more comfortable to me. But even then, I was drilling it so much. And then I felt like mine was still, I felt like it was clocking in about 45 seconds to a minute longer than what they were asking us. So I kept trying to trim it down even more, and then deliver it. And so I think all those things were running in my mind, and even the day of the talk. But I'm trying to think, the beats, kind of the memorization part. At some point, I was able to start to own the emotion again. But honestly, I could not tell what it really felt or looked like until I saw the playback of the actual talk.
Yeah, I was actually worried because I thought it went so well. I was afraid that the video wasn't going to be as good as I remembered it. You know, when you're performing on stage like music and you're super engaged with the audience and you have that shared energy across between you and the audience, and you're absorbing it, they're absorbing yours, and it's just shared energy. It's so magical. And then you hear a recording, you're like, oh my God, that's horrible.
Yeah, you hear like, man, my notes are off.
But you realize
the mic was too low.
Right, but most audiences aren't that discerning, and they're, as much as they're enjoying the music, it's the energy that they're sensing too. It's not so much this criticism of whether you hit every note. And so I was a little concerned that the video wasn't going to feel as good to me as the moment on stage felt to me. Yeah. But I also had a different start to mine because I did the first talk and because I did the first sound check.
Yeah.
So I walked out onto that red dot to do a sound check, and there were already people in the audience. Yeah. Well, they had to check the mics before anybody started.
Because somebody told me there was a sound check, and I was like, no, I ain't had no sound check. Yeah, okay. You said you got a sound check.
They just had to check the mics, the four mics, and then of course there were all kinds of things that went a little sideways.
Because I was in the second.
Right. Exactly. So we just handed the mics over and they had already been checked, supposedly. Things were a little funky, but it was still like part of the difference was there were people in the audience when I did mine. Mm-hmm. So I walked out there before giving the talk and had an audience out there. And I was doing check 1, 2, check 1, 2, check 1, 2. And because I'm a musician, I knew what the sound guys needed from me.
Yeah.
So I didn't stop talking. As you know, one of the most frustrating things for a sound team is when you're doing sound check and the vocalist stops talking, stops singing. When you're trying to make adjustments to the sound and they can't make any adjustments if they don't have any sound coming through. So I'm just talking, and I made some jokes. I made the audience laugh. I started singing at last, right? And people are like, oh, this could be fun. Like you could feel that energy shift. I actually did a monologue podcast episode about it a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I checked it out.
Yeah. So I felt like I had this advantage because when I stepped out to do my talk, half that audience had already been connected to me.
Yeah. That's wonderful. That's wonderful on your part. For me, the interesting thing was, like I said, stress management is one of the things I give keynotes on. It's one of my signature keynotes. And backstage, there was a lot of stuff. Any show. This is not about TEDx U Street Women or anything.
Right.
Just any show. As a manager, when I was a tour manager, when I was an artist myself, you could have everything, every T crossed and every I dotted, and some gremlin pops up.
Something's going to go sideways.
I mean,
for a live show.
My tour manager handbook that I just created for myself, my crib notes, is extensive because every time I'll be like, okay, I've got everything right. And this new thing will come up. So, okay, that's not going to happen again. It didn't happen again, but then something else.
Something else, right. And every time. It's like traveling.
Every time. So, and there were some gremlins, backstage with our thing. So everybody from organizers all the way down to us, the speakers and performers, there was some level of trepidation or ambiguity,
sure, yeah.
or what's happening, what's going on. And with some of these speakers, like you mentioned before, they were not speakers. They were not speakers. And even some of the ones who had spoken before had never given a TEDx talk. So they, someone didn't even know, oh, you're supposed to just stay on the red dot. And I remember mentioning that to somebody, and she was like, what red dot? And I was like, that red dot, that's where you stay. She's like, I can't walk around. I was like, no. And she was just like, yeah. And so as you remember, like while you were on stage, I'm back there just like counseling
right.
just about every other speaker. They're friendly going through their notes, and I'm just trying to get everybody's energy
lower the
down.
Energy a little bit.
The organizer's like, hey, you good? Like, this is going to be fine. This ain't anything that you need. And to the point where I'd almost forgotten, like, yo, I got to give a talk,
Right. Well, you and I were back there hugging people and just reducing the cortisol load for people.
I was just like, yo, people got to relax because there's just so much nervous energy around me. I started getting me like, I got to get out of here, So I was like, okay, I can't get out of here. So let me just help everybody else calm down. And in that, I learned that just another good or service that I could offer is just literally like how to prepare somebody before a big event, because I was literally just instinctively giving them some things that I realized, oh, I do these all the time.
Right.
And they don't know to do this, so they're going to be fine. And having them visualize the end product and having them understand that everybody here is in support of them, and having them understand that you don't have to be an amazing speaker. Just get your idea across. Matter of fact, when you are a little tense or nervous, just that vulnerability is probably going to fly so well for your talk. There was one speaker in particular, I won't mention by name, but like I said that. I said, hey, look, your vulnerability is going to make, and because they were afraid, oh, I didn't seem good. I said, and when the talk was finally posted, the video, I hit them up and I said, see? And she was just like, yo, you were right. I was like,
pretty good. Right.
I felt so horrible about it. I was like, no, you're going to be fine. This is absolutely going to kill the audience. Like, I was like, your talk is fine. And on that note, just talking about things like, oh man, Kuti accomplished this and that. I remember when we had the finals, it was all over, and I was just kind of sort of like finally decompressing, deflating, and I was about to leave, and Kim just stopped me and said, oh yeah, by the way, you made history. And I said, what are you talking about? She said, you're the first man we've ever, awarded a TEDx talk to. And I was just sitting there like gobsmacked, like, what? And my brother was there, and it was kind of like, of course, of course you'd be that guy. And that's what I'm saying. It's one of those things where it's just like people just presume that this stuff just happens. But I'm telling you, man, that was like, wait, what? Like, huh? And she's like, yeah, like this never happened before. And I was sitting there just, and and I looked around the room and I kind of realized like, she's right, but that was one of those things that, she said, our 5th anniversary and we made history. The first male, TEDx talker from TEDx U Street Women. And I was just like, wow, that's that. And given what I was talking about, that just really hit me in a very soft place. That was when I finally just kind of like, it just all came out. I was like,
yeah. So as we kind of come full circle and wrap up the conversation, when you think about your talk itself, I know that my cousin got in touch with you, who lives in Maryland, near Baltimore, Owings Mills, because your talk really resonated with her. I know it did with lots of people in the audience, and it will continue to resonate with people who watch the video. When you think about that, ultimately, what do you want your daughter to experience as a result of you doing this thing, taking it on, caring about it?
She was around for the process, although she didn't quite understand what it all was. She could tell that it meant something to me. and she could see me just working, just diligently on it. And while she knows me to be, you know, when I say serious, I don't mean like stern, but just a guy who's about business. I don't think she'd ever see me just submit myself to a process like that. And I remember when I told her that, you know, because she wasn't at any of the, you know, the events leading up to the competition part of it. And when I told her that I got it, you know, she just gave me the biggest hug. And then when I was like, man, and in the pitch, the story about her was a lot heavier in it. But I was considering her. I was like, you know, if this thing went viral, I said, dude, I want my kid, you want my daughter walking around with like, you know, the story of, you know, her first cycle being like the, you know, this thing.
Probably not.
I said, let me tone that down a little bit, you know, but still address it and her. But let me tone that down a little bit for my actual talk. And so this is the first time she's ever seen any part of the talk, and she watched the talk, and she actually commented, you know, she was just like, thank you, Dad, you know, for showing us that, you know, how important women are. And, you know, to have, you know, a young kid know that about her father, not ever have to ask that about her father, see it resonate with and then rhyme with what she knows, that's legacy work. And I am so committed to making sure she's amazing. And I'm so committed to making sure that she sees that amazingness all the way through. She's such a rock star. And so, you know, while I still have a few years of being cool to her, that meant a lot, but more than anything else. Even as I'm sitting in my hands and like hearts just
right.
But it's just like I want her to just see the value of dedication, see the value of education, but also see that her dad is one of the good guys, you know.
I love it. I love it. This has been such a good conversation, as I knew it would be. I'm going to do a screenshot of us so that our listeners can see the pictures of what's behind you. I'm just in a sound room at my co-working space, but your image is good. So big smile.
All right.
There we go. I'll include that in the show notes at elkinsconsulting.com. And Kuti, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. And thank you for everybody listening. You know, I'm sure you have, but if you haven't, you got to check out Sarah's talk. It is phenomenal about storytelling. Please check out my talk. I'd love to hear your feedback or see it on the YouTube, you know, underneath the link. I'd love to see how it resonates with you, what points you take away from it. And just in general, hit me up. I'm here to help. So, you know, you can check me out across all socials. It's at Kuti Mack. So just at KUTIMACK, my name. You can find me at Instagram. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Facebook. You know, just tell me that you found me here, and I'll give you something for free. Just that's what I do.
That's what we do. So listeners, all of these links will be in the show notes associated with this podcast episode at elkinsconsulting.com. And listeners, now it's your turn. What is one thing you've been wanting to do that you've been hesitant to do? What is one thing that when you think about if you had the right people in your circle that could support you in your goal, in your idea, in sharing something important to you? What is that? And I would really encourage you to think about what your idea would be if you were to share something on a stage like a TEDx stage. What do you bring that's unique? What are your talents? What matters deeply to you, deeply enough to put yourself in this really uncomfortable position? Stretch out of that comfort zone, reach out to Kuti or to me, and we will gladly share our experience with you directly and offer whatever we can to help you try to do that next big thing, because the people that you surround yourself with are either your greatest asset or your biggest liability. Your stories don't define you. How you tell them will. Thank you for listening.
That's the time
time. You must keep on trying. Smile, what's the use of crying? You'll find that life is still worthwhile if you just smile.